Welcome back to 10-Minute Manager. Our topic is getting your communication right. We will focus on conflict resolution as well as personality styles which affect communication. Conflict, it's really all about perspective. Sometimes we're so deep in it that we need to pull ourselves out and look at the conflict from a different perspective. Often this means asking for help, which we're not always good at. Yet emotional and behavioral awareness is key to manage and appropriately respond to behavior to get to the core of the issues. Let's face it, conflict in the workplace is inevitable, and it is impacted by relationships. Relationships with the manager, relationships with the team members' relationships with each other, relationships with the customers. And this requires effective communication skills to address and resolve any conflict. So let's jump in. How do you see yourself? Are you fast-paced and outspoken? Are you cautious and reflective? Or are you accepting and warm? Or perhaps questioning and skeptical? You need to understand what your personality style is before you can start addressing others and changing your communication accordingly. We'll briefly go over the DISC model. It is shown here. The top two, the D and the I, are fast-paced and outspoken. The bottom two are much more slower paced and cautious and reflective. On the right side, we have the I and the S, which are accepting and warm. They're very focused on feelings, where the D and C on the left-hand side is very focused on facts, and they are also questioning and skeptical. Here is a picture that I believe explains the DISC personality styles even better. Up to the left in the green is the D, which is dominance. Again, they're very outgoing, but they are results-oriented, they're drivers, and they are competitive. Over to the right is the red, influencing. They are also very outgoing, they are persuasive, inspiring, and very enthusiastic and energetic. On the bottom right is the blue, which is the S, also known as stabilizer, steadiness. They are very people-oriented, just like the I, but yet they are very amiable, democratic, and patient. They're much more reserved in their relationships. And then finally, on the left, we have this C personality style, the yellow. They are very cautious. They're task-oriented like the D, yet analytical, detail-oriented, and systematic. Why does this matter? First, you need to determine what your personality style is so that you can adjust it just for 15 minutes to talk to an employee or a peer so that you can get what you want, to be quite honest. For example, I am a high D leaning over towards the I section. So if you see my pointer here, I'm all the way up here off the charts, which means I really do not have much of the cautious or the stabilizing in me as a natural personality style, but at times I need to dig in deep and do that. When I know what part of the day works for me, it's first thing in the morning before my energy gets going and anxiety gets going, and that's what you need to figure out. I caution, if you are a D or a C, so the dominant or the cautious or conscientiousness is what it's also known as, you are generally more focused on tasks and less focused on people or their feelings. And so these two personality styles need to learn how to adapt to the ones on the right. The influencer and the stabilizer, the I and the S, are already very people-oriented. So they're focused on feelings, and if they need to change their behavior or approach for any of the other personalities, they already will. Every member of your team is valuable, and you do not want to have every single person on your team one personality style. It would be ideal if you had a well-balanced team, because we really do need each of these personality styles for something. So know your style, know the styles of others, know your triggers, and be prepared to handle them. And remember, it is not about you. It is about the team. Let's jump into effective communication. So considering what we just reviewed with the personality styles and other things in the workplace as well, consider how you interact with others so that they can both listen, and be heard. Here's a chart on communication. I want to specifically highlight the nonverbal communication. Body language is a big part of our communication. So is tone, way bigger than spoken words. And what makes this even more difficult is a lot of our communication doesn't have any of this now because it's all written in an email or maybe a text message. And so you have to be very careful when you are using virtual communication that your tone is appropriate. But most importantly to realize is that communication is best when it's one-on-one, in person, or at least verbally. And so here's another chart here of the communication pyramid. As you can see on the bottom email is less intimate. You could be sending out 1,000,000 emails, copying everybody, and manage to upset somebody because it wasn't personal enough. And then you go up to the next level, instant messaging, text, social media. Becomes a little more intimate, but it's still, hey, this is to everyone who can read this and who I can forward it to. Phone conferences is probably a very big tool that you do use just because of lack of time to set up a face-to-face meeting or even a video or a webinar. Phone conferences definitely bring in the intimacy a little bit more, but you still can't see the person's face and see if they're paying attention, if they're nodding their head, if they're shaking their head, if they're smiling, if they're frowning, if they're even awake. And then we go up to video conference and webinars, which we use quite a bit these days. And that is definitely a lot more intimate as long as somebody actually has the video on. And so that might be something that you want to mandate, is that somebody has the video on. They can hide their, whatever's behind them with a virtual screen or a virtual background if that's what they're afraid of. But video conference definitely brings it closer to the face-to-face communication, which is the most intimate form of communication. And that's where you're going to get a real sense of how each side of the table feels because of their emotions are shown. They're able to see what they're looking like, if they're nodding, smiling, frowning, or they just look skeptical. Here's a model that I like to use called the CALM model. When you're dealing with conflict and you have to address it, it's clarify the issue, address the issue, listen actively, and manage your way to the resolution. So clarify the issue is the first step. Why? Because often we jump to assumptions and we think that the issue is one thing and your teammate or your coworker or your employee is totally talking about something else, but they're so upset that they don't know how to explain the situation. So once you clarify it, then you can address it and then you can listen actively. What does listen actively mean? It means listen actively. Put down the phone, put down the text messages, put away the emails, and make sure that you are talking to the person, possibly taking notes if you have to. I like to say if you are going to be taking notes, so let them know that you're going to be taking notes, whether on your computer or on a piece of paper, so they don't think you're ignoring them. Repeat their words to them to make sure you understand things, especially if they're upset. Focus on the facts while being cognizant of their feelings. Their feelings do matter. And if anything remains unspoken, give the person time to think before answering, even if they need to come back at another time. Resist the temptation to interject your own thoughts because some personality styles or just some people in general will feel intimidated and will stop talking altogether and just agree with you. You want to explore as many options as possible so that there could be a win-win solution. I know that's not always possible. Let's talk about interruptions. They are a time suck. Keep a log, analyze, and resolve. So keep a log either on a computer or just on a piece of paper, stack of sticky notes, whatever works best for you. And literally say, okay, these are the things that took me off target today. And then figure out a way to get back on target tomorrow. That might be just saying, no, I can't talk to you. Or putting a sign on your door or on your email that says, I'm available for these office hours to talk, and have people schedule appointments. Not everyone's going to be able to schedule an appointment because they're upset right then and there, and that's fine. There's always times for emergencies. But the more you control interruptions, not just with you, but with your team members, the more productivity you are going to have. So, in summary, getting your communication right is not always easy. Conflict resolution involves deep and clear communication, and personality styles affect communication.